Hello, my name is Joyce Harper and I am Professor of Reproductive Science at the Institute for Women's Health at University College London. And my latest book, called Your Fertile Years, is being published by Sheldon Press in April 2021 and is available now to pre-order. Each week I am doing a short video and a blog explaining some of the key points from each of the chapters of my book. And this video is about chapter 10, Debunking the Myths of Fertility Treatments. Now, fertility treatment is expensive and does not always work. It's a very personal decision of when to start and which treatment to start with. So in chapter 9, I explained about the causes of infertility and the tests that can be done. And in this chapter, I will explain about all the various treatments that can be offered for infertility. But this journey is personal to the couple, and whether they decide to have any tests and whether they decide to have any treatment and which treatment is totally individual to them. In the last few years, I have done a survey of both men and women who were childless, who had wanted to have children, but who didn't have children. And the surveys found that there were some people that had really wanted children, but didn't even start the fertility treatment journey. And that's their decision. Some people feel this is not the right thing for them to do. So people that start fertility treatment, there's a number of treatments that are offered to them. And in the book, I will go through the fertility drugs that we give the woman to produce more than one egg, which in some treatments is required. I will talk about ovulation induction and timed intercourse, intrauterine insemination, which is where we inject the sperm into the womb, in vitro fertilization, which I'm going to say a little bit more about in this video, intracytoplasmic sperm injection, or ICSI, which is often used when men have a sperm problem and the sperm's not able to fertilize the egg naturally. I will also talk about embryo freezing, and I had twins from frozen embryos. It's a very successful technique. And I'll also talk about donation and a few other points. But in this video, I will just concentrate on IVF. Now, when we see a couple, they would normally be starting their journey trying to use their own eggs and own sperm. But there may be problems with those that develop, and that's why they might need to consider donation. And if there are any problems with the womb, they may even need to consider surrogacy. So there's many hurdles along the way in this fertility journey, and some people will like to not even start. Some people might try IVF, but only with their own eggs and sperm. And if it doesn't succeed, they'll stop there. Some people will go on to donation and some will go on to surrogacy. And as I've said, it's very individual how far people will go and when they will stop this journey if they don't manage to have children. So let's talk a bit about IVF. This is Louise Brown when she was born in 1978. She is the world's first IVF baby, I think the most famous baby in the world. And this is Louise Brown and her 40th birthday year. She did many engagements, and this is me and her at the Royal College of Obs and Gynae during a session there. So as I've said, IVF is an expensive procedure. It's tricky to go through. It's not easy to go through. I went through several years of IVF to have my children, and I found it a really hard journey. And in our survey we did of childless men and women, we asked them the reason, if they had gone through IVF, we asked them the reason they stopped. And the absolute top answer for both men and women was the emotional roller coaster of going through IVF. It's really not easy. The fertility drugs themselves are difficult to take. You have to inject the woman and they really make you go a little bit crazy for a while. And it's just an incredibly difficult journey to go on. And I really hope that through our fertility education work, we reduce the number of people that have to go to a fertility clinic to try to get pregnant. It's a traumatic experience, whether you have a child from it or not. And as I've said, incredibly expensive. I feel incredibly privileged that I got free treatment during my infertile years. And if I hadn't, I wouldn't have been able to have afforded this very expensive treatment. So I feel really passionate that we should be funding several cycles of IVF for everybody who needs it. So IVF is there. It's especially the only way that a woman can get pregnant if she's got blocked fallopian tubes, but it's used for many, many reasons. Some people feel some clinics will embark on IVF too soon and not try some of the other methods that I mentioned. And some will feel that they embark on IVF too late. And each person that sits in front of a doctor to discuss this will have their own views. So I think it's important for people to know the different options and for them to make their own choice of whether they go through this treatment or not. In the UK, we are governed by the Human Fertilisation and Embryology Authority, and they regulate all the IVF that happens in the UK. And I show this graph many times, but it is about the egg. So this is the HFEA data. If you're under 35 years, your pregnancy rate, whether you're 28 or 32, is very similar. And in the UK, it's about 30% per cycle. And after that, as we've discussed many times in my lectures, the chance of getting pregnant will go down with age. And once you get to over 43 and over in the UK, your chance of getting a live birth from IVF is under 5%. It's really just a few percent points, those few lucky people who will be able to at this age. But it is about the egg. So if we use donor eggs, we find that the age effect is totally gone, except the few cases over 44. But for the majority of women at any age, if they use an egg from a donor who are normally under 35 years of age, their chances of getting pregnant stay the same because the womb stays relatively fertile, but the egg doesn't. Now, I just also wanted to talk about IVF add-ons. IVF add-ons have been a very controversial topic that I've been researching for many years. I published my first paper on IVF add-ons back in 2010. And an IVF add-on is any technique that is a variational add-on from the routine IVF cycle. It includes, in my view, any diagnostic technique that is of unproven benefit. So there are lots of tests I could talk about there, and I talk about some in the book. And it includes laboratory, clinical, and complementary treatments. And I've published many papers, especially on the laboratory aspects, and I've also got 2 papers coming out on complementary treatment add-ons. In my view, if we're going to say to someone going through fertility treatment that if they pay £100, £500, £3,000 for a particular extra treatment that is added on to their IVF cycle, we need evidence to show that this technology will improve their live birth rate. And unfortunately, that data is not there. How we would do this study, it's a technique called a randomized controlled trial. In a randomized controlled trial, you have normally two groups of patients. One is the control group. They would just go through normal IVF, and the other group would be the treatment group. So say if there was an add-on such as using time-lapse imaging to look at the embryo and decide which embryo to transfer. If you're going to claim that this improves the live birth rate, you need to do a randomized controlled trial where patients are randomly allocated to the control or time-lapse group. And after you've got ideally a few hundred patients in both of those groups, you would decode the data and see, did the treatment of the time-lapse improve the live birth rate? And unfortunately, there's been many RCTs that have been done for a variety of the add-ons, but at the moment, there are no conclusive evidence to show that any of the add-ons that are used in IVF globally will improve live birth rate. So I am an advisor to the HFEA committee that designed this traffic light system that is on the HFEA website. And it's designed for patients to understand, so it's very easy to read. And these are the add-ons that we have been looking at. And so a green rating would mean that there is evidence, scientific evidence, to show that this add-on improves the chance of having a baby. That's the wording that is used. An amber add-on means there's some evidence, but it's conflicting. And a red rating means there's no evidence to show that this technology will improve your chance of having a baby. So you can see them there. They've been very controversial over the years. And as I said, I've published a number of studies. We've got one where we've looked at how clinics in the UK advertise assisted hatching, which is red, pre-implantation genetic testing for aneuploidy. It's got 2 reds here because there's 2 different stages you can do this, and also time-lapse imaging, which is amber. And we've looked at what the clinics claim these treatments will do, and they normally claim that they're going to improve your chance of having a baby. But the data from the HFEA that we have looked at, all the studies that are published in the literature that have reported analysing these add-ons, and we have not rated any of the add-ons green at the moment. So in conclusion, I have so much more to say about fertility treatment. I started working in the IVF field back in 1987 as a clinical embryologist, which is the person in the lab that mixes the eggs and the sperm together and freezes embryos, etc., etc. So where we are now in 2021 is that this is a multi-million pound, billion pound industry. The UK fertility market is worth 320 million annually. And who pays for that? Unfortunately, it's the infertile couples that are paying thousands of pounds to go through a cycle of fertility treatment. And I really wish that we were not so obsessive about making money. And it's not all clinics at all, but it's really become commercial. And instead, we were concentrating on making families. And in England now, there's no, as far as I'm aware, there's no clinic that does only NHS cycles, but there are in Scotland. So we've got ourselves, I think, in a really confused situation now with fertility treatment. And I think that we need to give our patients very accurate information about the limitations and the advantages of each of these treatments. So that's a quick whistle-stop tour of chapter 10, Debunking the Myths of Fertility Treatment. And you can read a little bit more in the blog that's on globalwomenconnected.com. Thank you very much.